Hey everyone, I'm Joe McNamee. I teach people how to buy and sell real estate for a fair profit, and I show them how to do that by letting them watch me do my live deals right in front of their face. I have my students come in, they sit in my office, or if there's a class going on, a boot camp going on, they sit in my boot camp. Whenever a live, one of my real buyers or sellers is showing up for me to negotiate a deal, the class stops, everyone shuts up, they become a fly on the wall, and then I go into negotiation mode with my buyers, my sellers, trying to make my local deals happen while they're watching me do it. After I'm done with my negotiations, the buyer or seller leaves, and then my students can ask questions. But until then, it's not an interactive thing. Every once in a while, depending on the personality of the buyer or seller that's sitting right there in front of the class, depending on their personality, I might pull my students into a conversation I'm having with them. But most of the time, it's very, very much a no-no for them to say anything at all while I'm negotiating. And sometimes in people's mind that are watching this, like maybe it's in your mind, well, boy, that must be really tough for the buyer or seller coming in and talking in front of the group. It's amazing. I'd say probably 5% don't want to talk in front of the group, and so when that occurs, then instead of it happening in front of the students, then it goes over to my office and one of my staff members negotiates the deal, and then they come back over to the class and let the class know everything that happened. In my office operation, where in my office itself, I'll have a camera running asking my buyers, sellers, and professionals if it's okay if we record this, and 95% of the time they have no problem with it. They sign a release form saying it's okay for me to release those videos. But every once in a while they won't want to be on camera, and then that 5%, and then probably 3%, three of that 5% will allow it to be on audio. So in other words, my camera will be pointed towards the wall instead of pointed towards them. So you never see them, you just hear them, and they're okay with that. And then there's 2% that don't want any recording whatsoever, and that's okay. All right, so this deal here, in my other video blogs, you hear me talk about the military. Well, there's a military presence here, and in most towns, if you look hard enough, even if you don't have regular active duty, you'll have guard and reserve military who transfer, move in and out, go on assignments, different places. Well, the military really takes a hosing, and I worry about the military a lot. I'm a retired Army officer. I spent 20 years and a couple of hours in the military. But this is an example of a warrant officer who has two houses. This is the one she lived in, and flip forward, Heather. And this is another investment property of hers, both in the same town, in a town called Hinesville, which is just outside of Fort Stewart, Georgia. She owns both the properties. She has debt on both properties, and she's trying to set herself up, or was trying to set herself up for an additional retirement besides just the military. A lot of GIs will do that. They'll buy houses in every town that they get assigned to, live in the house, then when they're having to relocate, then they'll rent their houses out. Well, the house, go back to the other picture, the house that she was living in, that's a really nice place inside. I mean, it looks decent outside, but inside it's very upscale. Everything that's in there she didn't spare any expenses, so she was really worried about getting a common renter in there. So she wanted to try to sell it, and of course she can't sell it in this economy for what she owes on it. Same thing with the other house. So what we did was we took over both houses for her. She relocated, by the way, she was on orders to relocate. She relocated, and she was still making the payments on them while we worked on trying to get these moved. Now, her area is outside of the area I normally work, so I don't have a lot of buyers in that area. So it took me a couple of weeks, maybe almost 4 weeks, to ramp up a buyer's list to get people in those properties. So I'd say about 30 days we put people in each one of them. So then we got the people in. This house right here, I will never buy it because it's so over-financed. But the other house, go back to the other one, Heather. The other house right there, you'll stay on that one now. That house right there, I probably will be buying that one pretty soon because it's no longer overfinanced. The people that are in there have paid it down enough to where it's worth it for me to just buy it subject to from her. So then I'll completely control the deed and everything. on that one. The other one, I'll just continue to lease it with the right to sublease until the end buyer that's in there gets it cashed out. So this is how you can help the military. And the reason why I say they kind of get hosed over is, you know, they go into, in a different economy, they can go into an area, buy a house, and then rent it out and not have a problem. In this economy, it's not working all that well for them, so they're kind of stuck. Also, if they want to sell their house that they used to live in so that they can buy another one, that's not working too well either. But when my company gets involved, we're starting to see more and more lenders who are getting used to my business, my company, and realizing that it's not a risk to give them a loan on another property. So there's some documentation that we do to help that lender be comfortable so that that seller can then buy another house in the next town that they've moved to. So it's a pretty cool thing that we do for the military.